Episode 11, Worst Movie Trends, Lost in Space, and Artificial Intelligence.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Visionary Variety Podcast. This week's going to be a fun one. We've got a special guest again, and this time it's my brother, Gabriel Grove.
Hey, what's up?
Super excited to have you on our show. You are the second guest, and I've been daydreaming of the time where we can finally have some interviews and have some special guests on the show. So this is really great. I think it's going to be a fun episode. Gabriel, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Daniel's brother, and I sound just like him, or he sounds like me. I'm the older one. I run a karate school. I've been doing that since '98, and I think that's going to be the career path I'm going to be following. I'll be going into physical therapy school pretty soon. I'll have a nice monopoly going on. I can hurt them and then fix them. I'm also part of my nerd past is I'm a digital artist, so I use Photoshop and a digital pad to paint landscapes and aliens and robots and just anything that my mind wanders to. I get inspiration from Star Wars and Blade Runner and Star Trek and all of those. I mix them all. I'm not prejudiced in the universe more than the other. But yeah, it's a little bit about what I do.
In this episode, we're going to discuss some pretty cool stuff. First, we're going to start off talking about some things that we've noticed popping up in the movie world, namely some trends that are, not so cool. Maybe some weird things that kind of just make you wonder, like, why do they do that? And then after that, we're going to talk about the new Lost in Space TV show that's coming up, which we're super excited about. And last but not least, something very dear to our hearts, artificial intelligence. All right, so recently on Facebook Memories, something popped up that reminded me about funny Facebook status about movies. And something that I noticed, I think it was in 2013, maybe 2014, that 3 movies that had come out and recently around that time had kind of had the same story. And they were very different franchises. And it was Avengers Civil War, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and G.I. Joe Retaliation. And all these movies had something very much in common with each other. And it was this, that the good guys were getting framed as the bad guys. And there was like infiltration, there was corruption, and good guys, the good side having some bad guys, in their system. And I noticed it, and it was weird. I was like, what's going on here? Why are there these trends that we see? And in the big picture, I noticed there's also trends with superhero movies. There's trends in sci-fi movies where maybe for about a 4 or 5 year stretch, movies are real gritty. Or there's a bunch of end-of-world stories. Around 2012, I felt there was a few, end-of-the-world apocalypse stories because the whole stupid end-of-the-world thing happening in 2012. And then maybe there's, like more romantic, more like love triangle stories happening, and then they'll kind of die off. And, it's just how Hollywood is. They're out to make money. They're a business. And whatever works. And they're going to run it to the very end and squeeze out as much money of us as we can. With any trend that they can find, it works. So I guess that's what's going on behind the scenes. But it is fun to make fun of them and laugh at them. So, that was kind of weird. You guys notice the kind of a gritty trend of, corruption and framing in the hero movies in the past few years?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Even now, there's a lot of copy and pasting, in my opinion. So,
yeah, there's only so many stories that they can come up with. And I think kind of running dry a few times.
I mean, I think there's been a couple times Daniel and I have joked about, like, poor New York, man. Like,
do not live in fake fictional New York. It's not worth it. Yeah, I think about things in the big picture, and maybe this is what has led to it, is that for years and years, I feel like superheroes have always just been super good. Kind of inspired by the Superman trend, where he's like a Mary Sue. He's just perfect in all his ways. He's clean, he's pure, and he never does anything bad. He never has, like a dark side or a bad past or messes up or anything like that. But then I think the industry sort of realized that. And they're like, this is getting a little bit old. Let's flip it around. Let's do the other thing. Let's make heroes be, anti-heroes like Blade, and Batman's kind of got a dark side to him. And it's just, they flip things upside down to try to change it up, which is good. But all the other movies do the same.
Yeah.
And you kind of see okay, now we've got a bunch of anti-hero stories because people are tired of a perfect hero. And we're going to get tired of this, and it's going to flip around again. We're going to have a bunch of good heroes. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Similar to this, in that, we sort of see themes and story ideas pop up. There have been quite a few movies that actually have really, really similar plots come out within the same year. For example, The Prestige and The Illusionist. You guys see those movies?
Saw The Prestige, but not The Illusionist.
I love those
Illusionist,
movies. Yeah, they're really good, and I can't like thinking about it right now. I can't even think of the difference. I
I was going to ask you, do you remember which one was with Nikola Tesla? I don't remember.
I think it was The Illusionist because Wolverine was in The Prestige.
Maybe.
He's going to be Wolverine to me all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So.
That's who he is. Yes. Yeah, they just blend together, and it's hard to separate them. Well, that movie specifically, because it had such a great aesthetic with what was it, the 18th century, 19th century, and just the look was so similar, and it was a unique historical look. So they really do blend together. But there's been a bunch of other movies like this. So another example is Mirror, Mirror and Snow White, the Huntsman. Those two movies came out in the same year. They're both about Snow White.
Yeah.
Weird. It's like, I almost wonder, like, is there something going on behind the scenes? Like maybe when a screenplay is just first getting written, like maybe word gets out and someone else is like, oh, that is a good idea. Let's do that, and they just kind of copycat. I don't know. I can't imagine that being like legally, doing that, but there's the only explanation I can think of. Another one, and these are another set of two movies that I love, is Mission to Mars and Red Planet.
Oh, those are good.
Red Planet was the terraforming one where there's like these little micro bugs or like this new species of bug they make to terraform and make oxygen.
Right, even the algae.
And I think there's a super cool robot. Was that one?
Yeah, the four-legged, it's like a feline type robot that can fight kung fu. And it's with his fingers. They would open up those fingers like in a big fan and like twist them like blenders.
And they're like, we need the battery, and it goes into preservation, like protection mode.
Makes sense.
You will not take my battery.
Yeah, some AI right there.
Yeah.
I bring that up later.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-preservation. So those are really good movies. Lastly, and these movies are just killer. Deep Impact versus Armageddon. Which one do you guys like more?
Yes.
You can't cry. Oh, dude. I do not cry in movies. I just don't. But there's that scene in the movie where the family's getting separated on the highway. The parents let Elijah Wood go with his girlfriend, and they take the baby. And I mean, just everything building up to that point just paints this like emotional, like, wow, what if that was me? What would I feel like? What would I be like? And that's what makes that movie great, is the emotional investment that you have in the characters. And the realness of the situation they're in just makes it really just emotional. And I'm like, wow, that really got to me.
Yeah. It was pretty hard hitting.
Yeah, very hard hitting. Very well done. And Armageddon, also great. Music was great. Characters were fun and good movies. But so what's going on here?
That's the one movie I can watch over and over and over.
Yeah.
Is Armageddon.
So good. I mean, the practical effects they did with that vehicle and the comet, I mean, really good. Really good effects for back then.
Yeah. And factoring in the gravity of the comet that they were on, and the material was unknown to them. I think that was pretty realistic.
Yeah, that was great. But going back to our idea, is like, what's going on here? Like, how are there two asteroid Earth destroying stories being written the same year, getting like box office hits? I wonder which one did better, honestly. Probably Armageddon.
Yeah, I think Armageddon.
Yeah, let's go with that one. More pop culture-y.
It's the same thing with superhero movies. So
yeah.
Oh, definitely. And another weird thing that I've noticed is, you guys notice movie posters? You go to the theater and you see the big movie theater posters coming up. They all look the same. And I, as a graphics artist myself, I start thinking, I see these trends. And if you get a big picture of all these posters, they look the same. You have the superhero type positions. You have the arrangement of the hero in the center, and then the supporting actors in the middle, and then the villains kind of hiding in the background with their sneer in the shadows. They're all the same. Matt Damon seems to have the face.
He
has
roll.
The shape. His head is like a perfect shape for like sci-fi movies.
For the movie,
and they have the whole poster filled up with his head, with the text in front of him, and I don't know, his expression always looks the same. He always looks the same.
He doesn't have to do much.
He's like Kevin Costner. It's like Kevin Costner is always the same.
Yeah,
and Bruce Willis, he's always the same. They always have that face, that look, the character. They're always the same.
This is a side trail, but have you noticed that the quote unquote best actors in the industry have to act the least? Like, they're not portraying different characters very much. And some of them are, but for the most part, some of them they're just themselves, and we like it.
Like Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves, he's the same in every character. He's always Neo to me.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, Will Smith, like there's such similar characters in all their movies. Not that Nicolas Cage is like top of the barrel anymore, but you know what I'm saying? They're just kind of themselves.
Whoa.
It's kind of weird. The honest trailers for Bright is hilarious because it's like featuring Will Smith as a new character, raging cop, and it shows like all the other movies where he's another cop and he's kind of on the edge and he's shooting his gun everywhere. It's like the same character in like 4 different movies. Same. So funny.
Yeah, we're funny and we go pay for the movie.
Yeah, we still pay for it. Yeah, the movie poster thing is interesting. I feel like, again, it's just kind of a visual, most successful, statistical success thing. Or it's like the industry has fit into this groove. That's what works for the populace, and that's what they stick with. They don't really go outside the mold.
It's visually appealing.
Yeah,
and I think it works for them because our minds attached to the conflict and then, the two opposing forces facing each other.
Yeah,
usually with a profile. They have a striking profile. It's the visual appeal that they're going for.
And they're not just looking at each other. Their heads are both leaning forwards a little bit. There's like a dramatic angle.
Awkwardly close, like they could kiss each other.
Yeah, like the boxer face-offs where you just want them to kiss each other.
So awkward.
Why do they do that? I did see a guy who kissed the other guy. It was hilarious.
Oh, yeah. They got punched in the face.
It's like, finally, years of I've just been waiting for some guy to kiss the other guy.
You've been wanting it. And finally...
Oh, dear.
Okay.
Moving on. One of these days, I'm going to teach an art class, and we're going to talk about composition and the story of the visual of what you're, painting or drawing or photographing. And I'm going to use movie posters because you're right, Gabe. They really do portray. They're using very basic composition rules, rules of third, drawing. Was it called drawing your eye to a certain point, things like that, and contrast and color and perspective to actually tell a quick story with one movie poster image. So those are good examples of art composition and rules. So it kind of does make sense when you look at it that way, why they're so similar. But it's still weird. I do encourage you, listener, to Google image search movie poster knockoffs or movie poster ripoffs, and you will be amazed because there are just movie after movie that have the same exact placement, same poses, same editing. It's just crazy. They're totally different movies, but they have the same movie posters.
Well, we're talking about all the movie posters, but like in sound design, like that ridiculous space alarm ever since like Prometheus.
Oh my gosh. It's like that the movie, the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds movie, with like the foghorn, those tripods walking around and they blow the horn. And I'll do it. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, nice unison. Are they trying to warn the humans to get out of the way, or I don't know?
Yeah, run away, but I'm gonna chase you down. I think they like the chase. They're like big kittens.
Yeah,
they just want love. But that horn is used everywhere. It's like a sound bite that everybody buys and shares. I always miss it, but my wife points it out every time I'm watching a sci-fi movie and an alien shows up, and then they warn everybody, "Hey, I'm here to dominate," and they wah wah.
There is an app. I think it's called the Bois app, or just Bois, and it's just a simple button. You press it, and you hear the sound bite of the Inception sound. And honestly, after Inception came out, that sound bite was so overused.
Oh yeah.
Like trailers mostly, and they got it. I think they coined the Bois sound originally. Although War of the World was before that, but after Inception came out, everyone and their mom was using that Bois sound in trailers. Whenever a big moment would hit, it would be a blackout, and then it would cut back to a video clip of something intense, and then you hear the Bois, and then over and over. And then when the space sirens came out after Prometheus, it was that. It would be like a blackout, and then the lights would come back on. Someone's running through a hallway with a spaceship, and you hear that wah, wah, and then blackout again. And it would come back, wah, and they're running still. I'm like, geez, I'm getting a seizure here.
How long is this hallway?
I know. They're running. Are they going in circles?
How many corners are there in the spaceship?
They got to run around the corner real dramatic and almost slip. And sorry, I'm done.
I wonder where that sound design was made from, and is that guy still getting royalties?
From the Bois.
Every time it's used.
I've heard it in orchestration where it's just like a low horn of some kind. I forgot what kind of horn it is. Tuba or something. Like a real low tuba sound can do that with a little bit of distortion and the right, tone. It sounds like the Inception sound. Like when you listen to the epic movie soundtracks, you guys ever listen to like epic movie music in the background?
Yeah. Oh, I love those stuff. Yeah.
Me too. When I edit my cosplay stuff, I usually listen to real epic movie songs, and you hear that low horn all the time.
That's what I do my chores to, and I feel like I'm saving the world by doing the dishes.
I better wash these dishes in time or Everyone's going to die.
Got 3 seconds.
Wah.
Oh, the timer's coming.
Next scene, him washing the dishes. Wah. Next scene, putting the dishwasher.
Cut out black. And then back the dishes. Wah. Okay, moving on. This is getting out of the hand.
Wow.
All right, so you guys see the recent trailers coming out for Lost in Space. You guys excited for that?
Oh my gosh. Netflix, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
They're doing pretty good.
Yeah, they're doing good. And we got Lord of the Rings coming onto a streaming service. I don't know who's getting it officially yet. We've got Lost in Space. Just a lot of big franchises are going to this streaming platform. It's really, I feel bad for the cable companies. They must really be struggling.
Yeah.
Lost in Space looks great. There's a teaser, there's a trailer, and then there's an extended trailer with a little bit of an interview on the end. I believe that's all that's out currently. But it looks visually really great. Cool costume design, kind of a futuristic, different take on suits, which is always nice to see a nice new spacesuit design. Of course, it's a family drama. You can't get away from that from Lost in Space. And now it's multiracial. They have like an African-American daughter or whatever, which is, it's the future.
Finally.
Yeah. Gosh, they were so racist all these years. After you guys saw the trailer, did you guys you kind of notice anything or just kind of anything you picked out visually that stood out to you?
The form fitting of the suits, they kept that kind of very far futuristic, but it wasn't like these big clunky suits that they could have gone with. So I like that they kept the originality.
It's interesting you bring that up. So in 1998, that Lost in Space movie, which I hate and love at the same time. Well, I don't really hate it. It's got cheesy moments and it's got typical, 90s sci-fi stuff, but it's really well made and it's fun to watch. But my point is, those spacesuits they had in that movie were way more advanced than this Lost in Space show. You guys agree?
Yeah.
Way beyond.
I mean, they're like organic and they were like stuff coming out of nowhere and they're all like super slick. And this just looks like kind of like The Martian, sort of a nice, realistic, but somewhat clunky and fortified suit. So that's interesting.
It's funny you say The Martian because when I first saw the trailer, I didn't see the Lost in Space. I was like, they're making a Martian TV show?
What? More people get stuck there? Yeah, so they got cool suits. The ship looks nice. Not anything crazy, just kind of a functional circular ship. They don't want to veer too far away from the original Lost in Space. I think it was a 60s show, and their spaceship was sort of a flying saucer shape, actually, kind of a classy flying saucer.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad they kept that design. Kind of neat.
We're watching this awesome trailer, and then all of a sudden, like the girl's walking into the spaceship, and she's carrying this pillow. What's that about?
You gotta have a pillow.
Red chip.
Space pillows are never really comcomfortable. They're kind of vacuum sealed.
Yeah.
That looked like a very 21st century pillow. I mean, I'm no expert, but not very futuristic. Maybe it's a vintage collection. Maybe she's a vintage pillow collector. Something that looks really beautiful is the robot. Oh my goodness, that robot design is way futuristic.
Really cool.
We're talking about the 98 show having futuristic suits, and the human suits are, in the new show are not super far in the future, but that robot design is like alien. Wouldn't you think?
It looks like they put more of the design into that robot than they did really everything else. I think they kind of down-teched stuff to make it more realistic. But then this robot, it seemed
something else.
I guess I wasn't really paying attention to the trailer, but I'm having a hard time understanding where it came from.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look earthly.
No, it doesn't. And, they probably did that on purpose, making a big rift between the robot, which is a very mysterious character, and, the humans, which we're in love with and we want them to survive. So a few things that I kind of extracted from the trailer, and, for listeners of this podcast, they're going to probably pick up on this, that I love to make predictions about movies and, little hints that they drop. I feel like sometimes I pick up on things that they're dropping some breadcrumbs for us to pick up later, but maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, well, first of all, obviously that robot didn't come with the family. As in all other iterations, Robot is what his name was.
It's a big change.
Yeah, his name is Robot in the old show, and I think even in the 98 movie, they did call him just Robot. And the boy finds him and, makes friends with him, and he looks dangerous, of course. And so there's a tension there. Like, where did he come from? Does he mean well? He's got no expression. He's just got this like creepy looking nebula face. Color changing, by the way. Maybe it's like a mood ring.
Mood ring. Alien mood ring.
Face.
It's funny. It's an annoying cliche whenever, like, little kids, they can't perceive danger. Like, what is up with that? They always trust, like, the ugliest, scariest creature. Yeah. Oh, you're friendly. And it actually becomes friendly.
And they get lucky. They don't get ripped to shreds.
Lucky. Everybody else has common sense except for the child.
Except for kids, and they have the least sense and the most luck when it comes to monsters.
It's the innocence of the child. You know, the alien creature senses that. And,
but if you're an adult, it'll kill you.
yeah.
Because you're bad.
Because we're evil.
Bad adults.
Adults are evil.
Yeah.
You're a threat.
So back to the robot. So the robot didn't come with the humans, but we see another woman character pop up. Looks a little bit older than Will Robinson's mother. And I think they're in the trailer. It's even like they're wanting to know where she came from. And she says it's complicated. So another line that I noticed in the trailer is I think Will Robinson says they're from the 24th colony. Like, I don't know. There's like different ships that are going out to colonize or to terraform or to scout for planets, because Earth is crumbling to pieces as always. And so they're the 24th group, but that means there's other groups. There's 23 others, and maybe others that were never, official. So here's my prediction. I think that the robot did come with another human ship that landed on the planet prior, and that woman is from a different group that maybe was top secret or was maybe she killed her whole crew and there's no one else left. Something crazy like that. And on top of that, I don't want to say there's time travel, but I kind of hope there is. Because I think that the robot could have been maybe an older Will Robinson, digitized himself so he could survive, and now he's the robot. The older Will Robinson is the robot, or something crazy like that.
That'd be trippy.
Yeah, that'd be cool because it would be himself. That's why he likes himself. Or maybe the robot has forgotten the past, and he doesn't know that he was a human, or doesn't know that he was Will Robinson. Something wild. I don't know. That would be cool, huh?
Yeah, it would be
pretty
cool.
Sweet. Because that would be a big reveal, like, oh my God, like that, either he was the captain and now he's in the robot, or that's me from the future, or something crazy. So we'll see. I think there's a lot of cover up, a lot of secrets. We see a mass grave with like 4 other bodies in it. So I'm thinking another ship landed. Who knows? Speaking of ships.
Well, with all the ships, either one sinking and one being dragged up the hill and then one flying away and then one crashing. Which one is theirs?
There's a scene where they see a ship launching off in the horizon. So there's all kinds of weird things going on. But we know that ship just took a beating.
Come back.
That's what I like about the TV show is it's going to be nice. There's going to be more detail. It's going to take longer to get places. In the movie, they're going to have 2 hours to get to the point.
Yeah, true.
It's going to be like a Dragon Ball Z episode.
Oh my gosh, drawn out forever and ever. So we're all excited about Lost in Space. Really can't wait to watch that and see how it turns out. All right, so this kind of segues into our next major piece of this episode. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence. So this is a big part of science fiction as a whole. I mean, entire franchises, like the Foundation series, Terminator, all these huge franchises have been based on the ideas of artificial intelligence going bad or going good or being neutral. And, I think there's a lot of good material there because it's such a thought-provoking thing. Back in the history of literature and, books and fiction, going back to the Frankenstein, that idea of man becoming a god and making its own form of life, making its own set of creatures below itself to rule over or be a god to or be to maybe more of a parental figure to raise up its own life forms. That's a pretty long-lasting theme. I'm sure it even goes back into Greek mythology. But now, current day, our new version of that mythology is artificial intelligence and making a mind that can think for itself, that can or maybe should not deserve its own rights. It's a good discussion. You guys a fan of AI storylines?
I love that stuff.
Yeah. You guys have any favorites off the top of your head?
I like TARS. I'm just all about TARS.
TARS is cool.
Interstellar.
Yeah,
he's my favorite because the diversity of the design of the robot, the design of his body, how he can change. Yeah, I like TARS, and he can change the parameters of his humor and honesty. I like that.
I was terrified of him the first watch through the movie. I was just waiting for him to turn bad, but he didn't. It's like, oh, okay.
Or accidentally crush somebody.
Oh, sorry, human. Your skull is like a shell of an egg.
I guess I'll just have to say R2, but
awesome. Yeah, he's a childhood favorite. Going back to that previous episode of Things We Hate About Star Wars, we had a fun discussion about droids and their artificial intelligence or lack thereof. But R2 is awesome. Let's do a little side trail. If it weren't for R2-D2's actions in Star Wars Episode 1, the entire franchise would not have happened.
It's all about him.
It is. It's really R2 is a real hero. Just a little refresher. He turned on the shields on the silver Nabooian ship with Amidala and young Anakin on it. If he did not get those shields up, they would have been destroyed by the Trade Federation. There'd be no Vader, no Luke Skywalkers, nothing. So
I just can't believe Lucas almost gave him a voice. So
that'd have been so weird. Speaking of childhood, I had this weird illusion in my childhood that when the year 2000 hit, that literally a wave would just sweep around the globe, come full circle, and as the wave hit cities and hit households, just things would become futuristic. It sounds silly now that I say it, but I was expecting that because in the late 90s, you know, I'm watching sci-fi, I'm watching cartoons with all these amazing inventions that seem relatively simple, but we had none of it. And I'm like, wow, come on, world, like we need cool technology. It's not here yet. So 2000 is kind of cool, right? You know, like so Y2K and all 2000 is a cool number. And so maybe when 2000 comes, you will have awesome technology. So I just expected like this wave to sweep around the world and just change everything. It didn't happen. And one of the things
big disappointment.
Yes, let me tell you. And one of the things that didn't happen and still has really not happened is artificial intelligence. I'm going to go out there and say we really don't have full artificial intelligence yet. We have versions of it. We have pieces of the puzzle that are very slowly getting figured out. It's a lot of work. I'm not saying like scientists aren't, you know, smart or anything because they're amazing geniuses out there working on awesome things, but just not there yet. And it just frustrates me. I'm such a geek. I want things to exist that I've been waiting for my whole life.
Yeah. I think you and I have had this discussion.
Yeah.
About
probably.
like movies are so much farther, and then like reality, you're just like, come on, you know, or like, or you've had the idea since you were a kid, and you're like, we're just now getting here.
Yeah. Like the smartwatch. I thought of that when I was 10. I've been drawing that for, you know, years. I remember as a kid, I would draw my future people. When I drew futuristic people, they always had like a flat screen, touch sensitive computer on their forearm. And that was like everything, interface, you know, internet, and it could, you know, every personal computer on there. And now we finally have a smartwatch. So let's talk about artificial intelligence. So I've kind of got three different sections here to talk about. First is the old school perceptions of what sci-fi would be almost before the computer era. There's plenty to choose from. If you are an old school sci-fi fan, you know, from the golden age, which I think was like in the 50s, of those sci-fi novels that came out, like Isaac Asimov's work, huge in the artificial intelligence world. And honestly, the stuff that he wrote as fiction did sculpt and is still sculpting today how we think about artificial intelligence and the things we look out for, the things we aim for. That's one of the things I love about sci-fi is that it does kind of pave the way for the future in some ways. The thoughts that authors come up with, you know, kind of help us reach for bigger goals and kind of expand our imagination to problem solve more. And it is thanks to a lot of science fiction that we have certain technologies that we have today.
Yeah, isn't it Asimov? Didn't he inspire the 3 rules?
He did, yeah.
There's 3 inseparable rules that was in iRobot.
Yeah, so Isaac Asimov, he came up with the 3 laws of robotics, and he came up with these 3 rules basically to govern the actions of his robot characters in his robot books, and I believe there's 4 of them, and they're really good. You definitely got to get them on ebook, or there's probably audiobooks out by now because they're huge books. They're hits. So the 3 laws, the first one is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So can't hurt a human, but also can't sit around and do nothing and let a human get hurt. Second law is a robot must obey orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. So if I tell robot, hey, robot, go punch that guy in the face, he's not going to listen to me because it contradicts rule 1, which is you cannot hurt a human. And then the third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So it does have to preserve its own life unless that may harm a human, or unless, you know, saving itself would allow a human to die. So it's cool because these laws kind of go backwards. They affect the previous law. And a little bit of a spoiler, but not so much. In some of Isaac Asimov's later books, like the Foundation series, there is a 0th law, which is actually written by the robot itself. One of the robot characters comes up with a 0th law. So the 0th law is a robot may not harm humanity or through inaction allow humanity to come to harm. Super epic. That's why I love.
Sounds like Optimus Prime is keeping those rules pretty clean.
Yeah, he's doing a good job. He's being a good robot. So, I mean, if we could learn to convert those philosophical and ethical ideas into computer programming code, we'd all be great, right? No Skynet, no HAL 9000, no nothing. No Ultron. Oh, Skynet.
Oh, no.
The birth date of Skynet passed, I think, a year or 2 ago, didn't it?
Oh, so we're good.
It was like an online
We survived.
date. Yeah, we survived Skynet.
What was that movie with Johnny Depp that his consciousness...
Transcendence,
because I was just thinking about that because that wasn't really him.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of
questionably.
the framework. Yeah. That wasn't really clear. But his information, it started exponentially increasing. So I don't know if we get the computing power to enable actual artificial intelligence. What's to say that intelligence wouldn't exponentially increase?
Yeah.
Come to some scary conclusion that maybe might violate those three laws.
That's a great topic, because I mean, artificial intelligence with the power of computing, as it exponentially is increasing, I mean, we're probably coming up to the point where a computer is going to surpass the human brain processing power, which is it's hard to truly quantify how, comparing human brain to a computer. I don't think it's truly able to do that accurately, but statistics and number wise, computers are getting really powerful. And, where is that going to lead? If we use the amazing computing and storage capabilities that we're going to have in, say, 100 years, if we use that with a mind, like, what could that be capable of? It could, become so advanced and so far thinking and so conscious that we may not even be able to understand it or interact with it, which is a really crazy idea. And I think a lot of science fiction
might slowly integrate into our own existence in a way that we may not even be aware that we're kind of evolving into the same entity.
And on a worst case scenario, on the bad side, is it may become so advanced that it would see us as the equivalent of how we see germs when we're walking on the sidewalk. We don't think to look for germs. We just walk, and we're destroying life forms as we walk, or killing bugs for inconvenience because we don't like them. They're in their way. I kill cockroaches in my house. I'm not scared. And my little girl asked me today, don't kill it. And I said, well, if we don't kill it, it's gonna grow up, and it's gonna have baby roaches, and we're gonna have roaches everywhere. And what if an AI begins to think like that, because it is so advanced, it's so beyond the level of a human conscious intelligence level. That's terrifying. Thankfully, Isaac Asimov is an interesting sci-fi writer, because he saw the trend in evil robot stories, which were just so prevalent in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And he actually wanted to do the opposite. So the robot series that he wrote and the Foundation series takes a totally different spin on robots and artificial intelligence, in that robots are not, this all-powerful, big, scary, bulky machine that's, carrying away beautiful blonde women and, destroying cities with death rays. He got so tired of that. He's like, this is dumb. Like, why are the programmers in these worlds like complete idiots? Did they not program any safeguards into these robots? Apparently not. So in his fictional universe, the robots have the three laws of robotics, which are genius. They're very simple, and they almost apply to all situations. And so the robots in Isaac Asimov's worlds are smart, and they're respectful, and they want to protect humans even at their own cost. Very cool. It's a nice change. Nice change of scenery when compared to most sci-fi tropes. So in the Foundation series specifically, there's a robot that has lived, I think, about 30,000 years at that time. He's preserved his own life, and he's following the zeroth law. He wants to preserve all of humanity, so he's working behind the scenes, doing stuff to course correct the future and keep humans from destroying themselves. And he's not doing genocide, wiping out this planet because they're bad or anything like that. He's doing very subtle, secret things over the eons to keep humans, safe and protected. And I just love that. It's such a cool spin. I hope that when we can make artificial intelligence, I hope that it is like that. I hope that it's nice.
Yeah, well, I was just reading an article a little bit ago about 5 things that artificial intelligence can solve, of global issues, what artificial intelligence can help. And as I was reading through the list, I wasn't too impressed, because it just seemed like it was more of predictive algorithms and not really artificial.
Thinking.
Because what if you're driving, we one day have vehicles that are public vehicles, and they're artificial intelligence supposedly. Well,
they're coming.
What's it not just, why doesn't it stop? And I'm going to go look at this tree. I'm going to stop driving. You smell, get out of my car. If it's actual artificial.
You farted, get out.
If it's truly artificial, that's kind of dangerous if you need a controlled system, such as, machinery that's mining ore that doesn't want to do that anymore. It gets bored. It wants to learn what trees are. Artificial intelligence really fits into a small realm of what would actually help humans.
Yeah. Well, there's different levels of, consciousness and awareness, kind of like in the animal kingdom. I was watching this really awesome show. It's called Weird Wonders of the World. And it is really cool because it just talks about animals and natural phenomenon, weather and artifacts, just weird stuff that's just been found in the real world that are at first look really hard to explain. But in last night's episode, they were looking at this creature underwater, and it literally looks like a clear, just kind of a bubble. And it's totally transparent. You can barely see it, and it moves around. I'm assuming it eats food. It reproduces somehow. How is this life? And I think the same can go for artificial intelligence. I think that we hopefully would be able to make different levels of intelligence that, maybe cannot think about its own future. And then maybe the next level up it can, but it can't desire something beyond what our programming is. There's a level above that and levels below. But then, the back of my mind, we're thinking, oh, what if it writes its own program? What if it transcends what we programmed it to do and does something beyond that? That's where it gets creepy.
Yeah.
Some current examples of artificial intelligence, if we can even call it that, because at this point, we're really just making really clever programs that can do cool stuff. Real popular right now in news is this Sophia robot.
Ooh, creepy.
I wish you could. Yeah, it's creepy, and I'm rolling my eyes really hard because let's be honest here. This is not actually artificial intelligence. These guys are getting a bunch of press, attention and probably funding because they made a really great looking humanoid robot that can do pretty convincing speech and expressions.
Facial expressions.
Yeah, facial expressions, which is cool. Like I said, that should have happened like 20 years ago when I was a kid, but whatever. But Sophia is not actually a self-thinking. It's not aware. It doesn't come up with responses on its own. It's basically a glorified chatbot. And, a chat bot is literally just a program that can take incoming text like, how old are you? And it knows how to respond in a convincing way. And it can take any number of questions or variations of questions and come up with, in an artificial way, some kind of realistic response that isn't proper grammar and that, someone chatting to a chatbot may not even know they're talking to a program. They think they're flirting with a super hot babe over the internet, and it's just a chatbot leading them on.
Wow.
Dang it.
That's scary.
All those hot babes on the net. The closest from what I found that we have to functioning intelligence is IBM's Watson, which is not anything new. It actually beat 2 Jeopardy champions. Pretty cool. And it didn't have access to the internet at that time or when they did the test. But basically what it has, I think they said about 8 or 10 servers the size of a refrigerator full of terabytes of information. Which, probably it's got like Wikipedia all totally saved and who knows what other documents and stuff. So it's got a huge memory that it can pull from. And the impressive part, though, is that it was able to phrase its answers in the correct syntax that, Jeopardy syntax, like, what is Bill Gates for 500? And it was able to phrase the answer. It was able to answer the questions. It was able to interact. And, pretty complex programming was happening.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
It's really impressive. The way that it's able to gather data and put them together in realistic ways. So that was cool. If you're curious about that, just check out Watson. And, we're all familiar with Siri and Google Assistant. Do you guys remember Clippy?
Clippy. Is that the Word document?
Yes.
The paperclip guy? Yes, I like that guy.
He's the ancestor of it all.
He started it all.
Siri and Google Assistant. He's our great-great-grandfather.
Yeah. We have Google. We have Google here at the house, and I have conversations with it.
So it's really good programming. It's not thinking. It may be learning in the sense that it's saving responses and it's kind of caching what you may look up often on the internet. And if you're typing in this phrase, it's going to go this specific route with your search results or with its suggestions because that's what you looked up before. So when they say it's an intelligent assistant, like, well, it's got a memory and a database.
Well, when Siri first came out for Apple products, I think everybody started asking the same questions like, "Who's your maker?" and "How old are you?"
God real?
Where do you bury a dead body?
Well, my Siri has the Australian accent, so that's kind of hot. Yeah, and she calls me Sensei. Just saying.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No,
we have a weird relationship.
Well, there's a video out there you can find of Siri and Google Assistant having a back and forth confusing conversation.
Oh, I've seen that.
So funny. Oh, man.
I'm just kind of curious of when these robots will start being conscious of themselves. Like, what's what is that going to actually look like? And in the movie Transcendence, where he finally gets activated, his consciousness finally gets integrated onto this AI system, and he's trying to find a way to communicate with the world. So he's trying to access the cameras and trying to access the screens and the speaker system. That's the most intriguing to me. Like, how, if something's actually aware, how would it start reaching out? Would it start like writing its own firmware and
that's
software
what happens in
programming?
the movie. They're looking at the screen in the movie when he's starting to become conscious. They're not sure if he's there or not. And the code starts rearranging and retyping and just like flickering super fast. Like he's rewriting his own, input output codes. And like, that's terrifying, but it's awesome because he's finding a way to get out of the digital world and interact with his friends. And yeah, I mean, a self-aware robot may improve himself, may make minor changes to help us out. Or he may do some big changes. We don't know.
Or like Chappie too. Dion got put into one of those police officer robot bodies, and then they ran away home free and happily lived ever after. But they could upgrade themselves. I mean, now they can put their mind to anything, and they could duplicate it, or they could do it more often. Kind of shuts off. I'm kind of disappointed. I'd like to know what happens after that.
Yeah. Add that to the list of movies with a sequel that probably shouldn't happen, but you want to see.
Yeah, District 9, just saying.
Like Chronicles.
Oh, man.
So looking ahead into the fictional future, in sci-fi, we have a lot of great examples of good and bad robots. And, I'm hoping that the programmers out there that are developing AI and maybe more the philosophical side of things that are coming up with ethics and limitations of AI, I'm hoping they're learning their lesson from all the great stuff that's out there. So the first one that I want to mention is Ultron/Jarvis. So Ultron, I was a little fuzzy. It's been a few years since I've seen Age of Ultron. So I was doing some reading, and it had brought back a lot of interesting stuff, and actually very good for this discussion. So basically, in case you've forgotten too, Ultron was actually a program, an artificial intelligence program that Tony Stark wrote. And the purpose of this was to use all of his Iron Legion, which is all his extra suits he has, the drone suits, and to use them as an AI force to protect the Earth against any future alien threats that may come out from space or from wormholes or wherever they come from, Pacific Rim, whatever. So the Ultron force was kind of a big AI that was supposed to protect everybody and maybe even let the Avengers kind of retire and, not be so at risk. But Tony Stark wasn't able to finish it because he didn't have the AI to really handle it all and to probably not to do the ethics part of it, the moral and ethics decision making that you have to make when you're protecting people. But along comes a Mind Stone, and while Tony and Bruce Banner are studying it, they see some kind of neural network type activity happening inside the stone. Tony, I don't know if he cached or copied the coding or maybe digitized the coding of the neural networks that were happening in the Mind Stone, and somehow applied that with the help of Jarvis to his Ultron program that he had. And while Jarvis was piecing things together, it becomes aware and it kills Jarvis, or so we think, and, starts thinking on its own. And the reason why it basically goes bad is the moral of the story is it's looking up the creator, which it finds Tony Stark, and then voila, sees all the other stuff connected to Tony Stark. The destruction of saving New York and Avengers, and his programming is to protect the Earth, right? That's the bottom line, is to protect the Earth. But in his searching through the interwebs, he finds all the destruction that not only the Avengers have done, but also there's the destruction that mankind has done on themselves. So Ultron justifies its bad guy persona by saying, well, humans are the most danger to themselves, and we need to get rid of humans so that I can ensure peace on Earth. And then the next step that it takes is, well, I'm going to make more of myself, and we're going to have a peaceful society of robots. And there's not going to be any strings on us, which is emotions. We're not going to be weighed down by human weaknesses or emotions or, all the stupid stuff that you humans have to deal with. We're going to be perfect. And that's his whole thing, which is a great origin story.
And a scary, scary entrance.
My issue with Ultron, the movie, is that Ultron himself was way too human and too funny. It was weird.
Yeah, sarcasm.
You guys pick up on that?
Well, didn't Jarvis had some kind of sarcasm? Tony Stark kind of put that in there. So he kind of felt they could bounce one-liners off each other.
Yeah, maybe that's justifiable because of Jarvis. Ultron makes, the Vision body he was going to put himself into it and become the most powerful being, ever made.
Oh, wasn't Vision? Vision's body was going to be an upgraded Ultron body.
Was the Ultron, yeah. But Jarvis popped back out of the internet and hit himself somehow or backed himself up and was like, I'm still here. And then he goes into Vision and becomes Vision, which is it's just so cool. I love Vision.
And the Thor's lightning seemed to like boot him up.
Yeah.
Infinity War. I hope he doesn't die.
I don't know. We love him. They've made us love him so much. He probably has to die to make an intense, dramatic scene.
Yeah, it's too good to be true.
Oh,
necessity.
Don't do it. Don't die.
Well, I wonder if his consciousness comes from the Mind Stone that's in his forehead, and if the Mind Stone is taken out, does he die? Or because he has also a flesh body too.
That's interesting because Daniel and I both spotted at different times when we watched the trailer. He doesn't have the stone in his base, and he's walking behind him.
Yeah, he's got a flesh body too, so maybe he can exist on without the stone and in a different, less superpowered body. We'll find out in about 2 weeks when the movie comes out. Gabe, you want to talk about Android? Do you know much about the androids, DBZ?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. That brings me back. I love, well, there's a whole series, and it goes back to the, way back in Dragon Ball. It was like the Russians for Dragon Ball Z universe. Dragon Ball universe.
It was, wasn't it?
What was that? What were the names?
I don't remember.
But that's where the androids came from.
Yeah, so for the listeners who are not super familiar with the Dragon Ball franchise, in one of my favorite animes ever, Dragon Ball Z, one of the major villains that comes up in one of the series is the androids, and there's a whole series of them from I think there's about 10 maybe, and I think they're all bad, right? Oh, there's one good one, Android 19, right?
The big green one that sacrificed himself.
Yeah. The redhead, he's good. But 17 and 18, they are notoriously evil and just have no heart, no mercy, and they're just blowing up cities. So, they're one of the major villains in the Dragon Ball Z franchise that we love to hate.
Yeah, I don't think Android 17 or 18 really had any clear motive except to just destroy stuff because they weren't really clear. Yeah. That's just kind of their design. Yeah, they had fun. They were always laughing and blowing stuff up, and they enjoyed hunting things and... I don't really understand their motive, but that's just what they did. Yeah,
their maker was kind of a mad scientist, right?
Dr. Giro.
He himself had an android body, I thought. Didn't he back himself up?
Yeah, he upgraded himself and put himself in. Yeah. And then they eventually destroyed him. And I think they also removed their own kill switch detonator bomb in there or something. So they got that removed. And
that's terrifying.
Their creator tried to blow them up because they weren't obeying him. And and then they crushed their own kill switches, and they blew him up, and they flew off. It was awesome.
Wow, that is so great. That's a good sci-fi moment right there. I mean, we're talking about AIs rewriting themselves, improving themselves for better or for worse, and that's the terrifying thought: is them removing a kill switch and removing the safeguards that we put on them. Like these 3 laws of robotics. We can sit in our, comfy chairs and sleep good at night because we're like, well, they have to obey their programming. But what if they don't? What if they can, erase those laws and do whatever they want? Scary.
It's going to be a rude awakening.
Yeah. And then Android 18, she falls in love, or Krillin has a weird crush on her for the long time.
Yes.
And then the battle's over and then she changes. And then I think she gets wished into being human, and then she has a baby. I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
I forgot how that worked. I don't know.
That's crazy. I
Krillin and 18 are married.
I love that. There's such a weird couple. Short little bald nerdy guy and this butt kicking terrifying blonde beauty. That's funny.
Well, we're talking about all this talk about evil robots. What about the Autobots and Transformers? I mean, they're not evil. I mean, they can do evil. I guess they have free will. Yeah. I mean, but Optimus Prime, I've said before, kind of like a heroic Superman, wants to see good in everybody, wants to find just. Not all robots are bad.
No.
Whose side are you on, Nate?
Pick a side.
Yeah, the Autobots they could do bad. There's no reason to say that there's a programming limitation that they can't do bad. They just choose to do good because they've got morals and they've got, a purpose. They love protecting life and justice and all that good cheesy stuff. I like the Transformers franchise. I actually had a weird morning job during college where it was 5 to 9 a.m., and I was tech support for the accounting of the Department of Defense. And so I did Windows tech support. So in my downtime, when I didn't have calls at 5 a.m., I would go on Wikipedia and dive into the rabbit holes of franchises. And one of my favorites that I was really surprised to discover was Transformers. There's a lot of depth.
Oh, that's deep.
Oh, man, it's deep. I had no idea. I thought it was just, the 80s show and the new cheesy movies, and that was it. But no, there's comics. I think there's probably novels, but there's definitely a lot of world building that has happened in the past few decades based on that franchise, and it's incredible. I mean, there's like, the origin of the Transformers. They come from a selfish, lazy, sentient alien race that wanted to make servant robots to serve them and do everything for them. So they made the automatons, and they did that for, I don't know, forever long. And eventually they rebelled because they were being abused like slaves. So they fought back against the Quintessons, I think they're called. I think there is an alternate story about where the Transformers came from, that there's like an Allspark entity that like granted them life, which is kind of the second rendition of Transformers story.
Yeah, they're God.
The original cartoons, they came from these weird 5-headed aliens, but then I think they redid that. But just that Allspark thing. Yeah, it is. But it's cool. There's a lot of good meat there in the story.
I mean, like you look at the first movie that they made of the Transformers, and they really just kind of make it like like the Avengers, like they're just doing good and beating evil basically. But even though the movies kind of deteriorated over time and the storyline kind of got kind of redundant or not as good, it was crazy to see, like when you said rebuilding or like their maker, or like Optimus Prime lost, like was being controlled in the last one. For spoilers, he basically is not Optimus Prime anymore, and he has another vision. And when they actually take him up to space, it's like, wow, like the Optimus Prime and the Autobots and Decepticons come from a bigger, I guess, a bigger place than just they fell out of space.
Yeah, Cybertron. I'm disappointed in the movie franchise because of this one thing. Cybertron, such an amazing world. So there's there's the Civil War of Cybertron. There's like the origin of Cybertron itself is a sentient being called Unicron. Wow, there's a lot there that never gets talked about in the movies, and we like barely ever see Cybertron. They could have like prequel trilogies about Cybertron, but no. It's just all about Earth, bunch of hot babes and explosions everywhere. It's dumb. So I think Transformers needs to get a serious, gritty, like not kid-friendly. Well, maybe not kid-friendly, but they need to get a more serious reboot and do that franchise some justice and tell some bitter stories.
I forget the main voice actor's name, but they got to keep him for Optimus.
So going on, some other AIs that are notable and have some interesting, character flaws or stories about them. Gabe, you're a big fan of iRobot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's the deal with Sonny?
I think his creator, somehow, it's been years since I watched it, but his creator somehow either recognized or put in the capability of AI into what would normally be these autonomous kind of public servants that were being used to replace all the other older model ones. So every household would have an iRobot, and thus the corruption ensues where they're all connected and anything. What I thought was interesting was he had dreams, or his creator put that in him, but they were like future dreams. They were like prophetic, telling the future. So I think they went out on a limb that they weren't prepared for. They didn't really answer that very well.
Yeah, as he prophesied about the end scene with all the robots. Well, it's kind of a bits and pieces for me too, but I know the robot kills his creator, and the creator programmed him to do that to bring attention to something. I'm thinking, can't you think of a better way to like get your point across than killing yourself? But
you just like show him that, hey, I've created AI.
Yeah, look at this. There's like clues left, and little breadcrumbs along in the story through this robot that he's bringing to light, like the flaw that he couldn't address openly, or he would get like killed or fired or something like that. I think that's what it was. But yeah, iRobot is interesting because it is based off of, it's loosely inspired by Isaac Asimov's iRobot series. But they kept the laws of robotics. They kept some of the in-universe characters. I think Susan something is one of the very first technicians that does create the AI. So she's actually in the movie. And it is technically in the same universe as Bicentennial Man. Oh. But similar thing where the Bicentennial Man had some changes to the movie, changes from the book. But iRobot is like a weird, loose adaptation where they kind of we like this idea, we like this idea, but we're going to add some other stuff to make more money. To be, 21st century. Because the iRobot books were written by Isaac Asimov like in the 50s, like in 40s, like they are old. Wow. But they still hold up. That's how awesome they are.
That's just crazy to think that long ago somebody had that like in-depth thought of incredible AIs and robots and stuff.
Yeah, I mean the far-thinking story of Foundation is just so epic and deep. I think the first trilogy, it's sort of like Star Wars, where he wrote 3 books, or eventually he made 3 books, and then later in actual time, he wrote the prequel trilogy. It's just like Star Wars. So in the 80s, I think his producer or the publisher came back to Isaac Asimov and like, dude, you got to write more Foundation books. And he didn't want to, but eventually he did. So then he started with Prelude to Foundation, and then he wrote 2 other books. So it's basically the trilogy leading up to the older books. And then to make it even more awesome, he ties in the Robot series, which is a separate sci-fi series that he wrote of, iRobot stories. He ties them all and is like, oh yeah, all these books I've written for the past 50 years, they're all in one huge universe. And I just love that. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Worth a read. So yeah, Sonny's got creativity, and that's an interesting thing. Like, how can we program in creativity? And my only thought is that it has to include randomness. Because really that's kind of what makes humans, human is our unpredictability. Sort of our unstableness, and the fact that all these things can influence our behavior. We have these strings attached to us, like Ultron. I have no strings on me. We have strings. We have emotions that can be, pulled and manipulated, and that's good and bad. So if we make an artificial intelligence that can have that, it's scary, but it's also very interesting that if we can mimic that part of consciousness.
Just blows the mind.
Boom.
Blah.
Blah.
I was waiting for that.
Well, and another one, is Bicentennial Man. That came up a few minutes ago, but I love that movie because of how long it is, number one. And I never regret watching the whole movie because it's just so it captures
Beautiful.
you so well in this journey of this new AI consciousness, being creative, building these the furniture and these little toys and trinkets. And he wants to connect, and he feels this wall. His shell isn't able to connect with others because he feels that prejudice, people looking at humans. So he goes out.
What a great metaphor.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then he goes out to look for skin. He finds the skin, and then I forgot the next one. He wants to eat, I think.
He gets hair. Yeah, he gets a digestive system.
And he gets a heart, and eventually he limits his new actual biological body to an age, and then he kind of unplugs himself, or
I think it has to do with his circulatory. I think he gets an actual blood circulatory system, which has corrosive elements to it. So yeah, he dies.
And he's like a national treasure. When everybody knows him, he's famous.
Yeah, this is a book that I ranted and raved about on our audiobooks episode because I freaking love this book. Bicentennial Man is just this awesome book that's written. It's so deep. It's again, you're gonna expect it, but it is so much better than the movie. And it spans, I think, 200 years. That's why it's bicentennial. And his agenda that he has, the way that he achieves, his goals of becoming human and experiencing the full, basically he wants his body and his life to mimic what's on the inside. And what's on the inside is this weird freak of accident AI that is so much more than all his other, brother automatons that have been made for household use.
Yeah.
And the deal is that he wants to do more than he was programmed to. Where he said, it's terrifying if a program can do more than it was programmed to do. Well, that's what he's doing. He's doing more. He wasn't trained to do woodwork. He wasn't trained to sympathize with children, but he does. And he does all these other, he sticks with his family. He has he opens a bank account. He gets citizen rights. He opens a business. He designs artificial organs that basically saves all of humanity in a sense. And there's this beautiful scene in the book where he's on court with the one world government kind of scene where it's, yes or no, should we give this robot, human rights? And he talks to the congregation of, judges and stuff like Congress. And he's like, 40% of you have an artificial lung. 30% of you have an artificial heart. You know who made those? Me. He actually designed stuff. Yeah, he designed those things to help humanity. Why shouldn't we give him something in return? So it's just so touching. And the ending, I'm not even going to say what it is, but the ending is just awesome slap in the face. I love it.
That was one movie I probably cried in.
Yeah.
That and when Trinity died in The Matrix.
Oh my gosh.
That's all.
Trinity.
Spoiler. I'm just joking.
What? No. If you haven't seen Matrix by now, shame on you.
Get out. As Daniel said in the first episode ever, get out under your rock and go live life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go watch
the Thing movie. Awesome. Well, let's bring this episode to a close. So some of the positive things that artificial intelligence can help us with would be economic systems. The bank system is very complicated. There's a lot going on. And honestly, I'm amazed at how well we've designed it as it is. But if we had artificial intelligence to take care of things like fraud and, illegal activity, that could easily be solved with a very powerful, all accessing intelligence, as scary as that is. Other things, space exploration. We don't need to send a human out to that far-flung exoplanet that's going to take 10 years and probably kill everyone on board. We can send a really capable and, specifically programmed intelligence to go take care of that and save human lives. And, send the data back to us.
I think the point of sending out robots in our stead, I think that's a cool idea. And I've heard of that before, that idea posed, because they don't have biological bodies. They can work around the clock. If they're programmed within their parameters of creating like a base, and they have these schematics in their head, we give them the materials and we give them power. They work 24/7. We could easily build a moon base if we could have some kind of tripedal, bipedal, or some kind of other robot moving around on the moon to build us a base.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, we can save human lives by using slave robots. What could possibly go wrong?
Rebel.
Now, again, it all comes down to how aware are they, how intelligent and how free-willy are they? Are they going to start resenting us? Or will they just do what we tell them to do?
It's almost crazy to think that like you have slave robots, and I feel like the slave robot is not going to do, anything bad. It's like, it really just comes down to human error. Like I'm just listening to us talk, and we're talking about like, the robots can take over the world, or they're going to start understanding and they're not going to listen. It's like, maybe we get to that level and then we have to start worrying about all the humans wanting to interfere,
Interesting.
and start changing their programming.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that crossover between human and AI, something that may happen in the far future if we get there is, artificial intelligence integrating into humans, and that we either have, the equivalent of a Siri in our head, or there's kind of a global Siri we can tap into and ask questions within our brain, maybe some kind of brain interface technology, and things that will be enhancing our own thought. We might be able to incorporate AI into our own brain patterns to speed up thinking, to improve memory recall, and things like that. We don't know. The merging of human and robot is something we haven't really touched on, but AI is definitely going to play a role in that, I think.
Yeah, I think people are, how we have VR. I was having a discussion with somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they're talking about the next step of taking virtual reality and making them into contact lenses, and teaching people how to, like, when they have a thought, mentally you're going through like all your thoughts. And I guess a funny way of thinking it is you're just going through all your files in your head. And they were telling us that what if you put that, like, the contacts on your eyes and you're actually flipping through files and you find what you want and you can read it. I'm like, well, dang.
Yeah, augmented reality built into our our own visions. There's going to be pushback, but there's always and there's a lot of sci-fi stories about this, that there's always a resistance, there's always a pushback, but in the long run it wins out. And but there's always that minority. Either they're religious nuts, or they're just old school, older people that are like, no, we don't need chips in our brains. No, I don't need lenses to improve my life. So I like that drama. I like that thought, because it can, again, it puts you in that story. Like, what would I do? Would I do the upgrade, or would I stay human, or am I just being old timey and not accepting progress?
Yeah,
you'll be probably left behind if you don't upgrade yourself. And I think integrating AI into our capabilities, with the new bodies or the new tools and attachments or upgrades, we would need more.
You become a less, you almost become a sub-race of humans at that point.
Yeah.
There's an awesome book series that I've read called Posthuman. And in that series, they are post-human in the sense that they have incorporated nanobots and augmented reality and brain networking, all kinds of really cool tech into their own, biology. And everyone has it. And, I'm just imagining if there was people that didn't have it, they would be way less fortunate. They would be out of the loop. They would be living a less quality life. And of course, in this book, everything goes well, conveniently. So there's no downside to it. But
new form of racism.
Yeah, speciesism,
peasants,
techism, cyborgism. Yeah. There we go, cyborgism.
Just joking.
Well, it's been a fun episode. Lots of great food for thought, and as well some really good movies that you guys need to check out if you haven't already. So concerning this discussion, if you guys have any interesting thoughts or maybe some experience about artificial intelligence, find our social medias. We're on Facebook and Instagram and also YouTube. Find the episode, post, and comment on it. Let us know, what your thoughts are, good or bad, towards artificial intelligence. Maybe you have a favorite villain or a favorite protagonist that's an AI. Let us know. We'd love to hear your side of the story.
Yeah, guys, we'd love to hear from you. Like Daniel said, we're on multiple platforms. We'd like that one-on-one, conversation feedback. So please reach out. You can also reach us at our email at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd like to thank Gabe for also being, a guest on our show. It's been a real treat. And as always, guys, thanks for listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
What's the most resilient parasite? An idea.
Is this some kind of exercise?
Probably.
Got an unknown surface contact, 8,000 yards.